Ghost Hunting in New England,
your favorite spooky podcast. Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Ghost Hunting in New England. I'm your host, Amelia, and I'm joined today by my co-host in Buffalo, New York, Will Fox, lead investigator of Long Island Paranormal New York State Branch. Hey, Will, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I am doing great.
Excellent.
So, we've been having a lot of fun the past couple of weeks, going over some different things, some haunted phone calls, going over, love gone wrong. But we've been outside of New England a little bit. So I wanted to send a special shout out to one of our listeners named Deb. Hi, Deb. Because she sent me a message on Twitter suggesting we do the Curse of Saco River, which led us to do the episode that we are doing today, which is Urban Legends in the State of Maine, which I'm very excited about. How about you?
Yeah, I have never really actually looked up any of these before we did some research on them, but there's a lot here. I don't know, maybe me being not in New England, Maine kind of flies under the radar for me, but there's a lot there.
There is a ton there, and I'm not going to lie, I too was very surprised by how many urban legends there really are. I mean, there are a ton, and these are all places, as we said on our Haunted Lighthouses in Maine episode, I was in Maine all the time as a kid, and my parents are still up there, constantly. I told my dad we were doing this episode, and one of the first things he said to me was, I almost drowned in the Saco River. So, it's one of those things that I was really, really surprised by a lot of these. I think there was only really one on here that I had really heard of before. So that made it an interesting thing to research too, because, you're learning so much about all these different things. So, yeah. Should we get into it?
We should. Sounds good.
Okay. So, we are going to begin with the Curse of Saco River. The Saco River is a river that runs 136 miles from northeastern New Hampshire to southwestern Maine, where it empties into Saco Bay. Longtime listeners of the show will remember Saco Bay as it is home to the Wood Island Lighthouse. It supplies drinking water to roughly 250,000 people in 35 towns, and historically provided transportation and water power, encouraging development of the cities of Biddleford and Saco, and the towns of Freiburg and Harum. The name Saco comes from the Eastern Abenaki word, meaning land where the river comes out. According to the legend, the wife and infant son of the chief of the Saco tribe, Squandro, were traveling by canoe near the mouth of the river when they encountered 3 rowdy, drunken English sailors. The sailors allegedly made this. All right, just a quick trigger alert. What I'm about to say is really terrible. It's not pleasant, and we have a long history in America, and what I'm about to say is not pleasant. I'm just saying that right now. Okay.
Gotta love early America.
Right. The sailors allegedly made a few bets, then snatched the baby from the mother's arms and threw him into the river to see if it was true. Could Native American babies be natural-born swimmers, as some claimed they were? The mother, thankfully, was able to rescue her baby at the time, but unfortunately he did die a few days later. Chief Squandro was said to have great spiritual powers, and after mourning for 3 days, he was overcome with his grief and put a curse on the Saco River, saying that every year after, 3 white people would drown in the river. Some historical accounts state that the death of Squandro's son in 1675 marked the end of peaceful relations between the settlers and Native Americans living in that region. History suggests that the incident ignited violence between the tribe and the white settlers and led to the first blow in the King Philip's War when Squandro influenced a band of, I'm going to try it, Androscoggins to attack white Saco settlers. Like many stories that have been passed down, the legend of the Saco River has multiple versions. One variation holds that the event took place near Leamington, Maine, and the victim was the chief's daughter. The maiden was supposedly kidnapped by 3 white settlers and carried off in a canoe. The girl fell out in the infamous Leamington Rips, and her father placed a curse on the river. Even now, people living in the region say that on average 3 lives are lost along the Saco River per year, and they maintain a healthy respect for the curse. Old-timers recall hearing the legend told by parents and grandparents. Local historian Herbert Clemens also remembered hearing about the Saco River's curse, ever since he was a young boy. Among his files is a partial list of drownings near Hiram dating back to 1873 and an old Ripley's Believe It or Not clipping about the legend in which the Saco is called the River of Death. Precise and complete statistics on the drowning on Saco do not exist, in part because the river is so long and goes through multiple states. So what do you think of that, Will?
Well, Amelia, that's not the only legend of the Saco River. There's also stories of a river monster in that river.
Ooh.
The legend of the cursed Saco River dates back to around 1547. A tribe of Indians living on the Saco Island worshipped the nefarious river monster. And again, Amelia, this is one of those things where early America was kind of messed up, so a little trigger warning here. One night, 3 drunken sailors made their way to Saco Island, grabbed a mother and a child, and sent them hurling off Saco Falls. They believed that they'd survived the fall, but somehow, and not surprisingly, they didn't. The husband put a curse on the Saco River, demanding that the river monster kill 3 white men each year to avenge the deaths. The river monster, who is sometimes called the White Monkey for his human-like appearance, has been seen several times since 1547, the most recent being in 1970.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different stories just for that one river.
There are. And they're all kind of similar. 3 men, woman, and child.
White men, too. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The curse being for white men.
Yeah. I think it's just white people. Because I know a lot of women drown there, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, that's scary. And people are still drowning there all the time. One of the articles I actually found on this was from Yankee Magazine dated May 1989, shortly before I graced the planet with my presence. And they talked all about it there too. They said, especially the older people in town, that their grandparents had all told them about it and everyone knew to just stay away from the river.
Yeah, actually there's, I won't go too far into it because maybe it'll be a future episode, but there is a lake on Long Island where it kind of sounds like this, where there's a backstory, Native American backstory, and there's a quote unquote curse on that lake. It's Lake Ronkonkoma on Long Island. But it's the same kind of thing where somebody dies in that lake every year.
Wow. Good thing I hate swimming.
But, speaking of the river monster in the Saco River, that leads me to our next story.
Ooh.
We're going to talk about the Pocomoonshine Monster.
Ah.
The Pocomoonshine Lake Monster, to be specific. So, the Pocomoonshine... Oh my goodness, that is a very easy word, and I already messed it up. The Pocomoonshine Lake is a 4 square mile lake that is between the town of Princeton to the north, which has got a population of 832, and the town of Alexander to the south, which is a population of 499.
Wow.
Very small towns. It is the home of an alleged sea monster that is 4 foot wide and 30 to 60 feet long. The legend behind the monster stems from Native American conflict in the area. According to MysteriousUniverse.org, a source reliable enough for myths, the Algonquin Indians of Maine have seen a monster in Pocomoonshine Lake for centuries. Legend has it that the monster is a result of a disagreement between the Algonquin shaman and the chef of the Micmac. The Micmac chief turned into an enormous serpent, which the shaman vanquished and tied to a tree next to the lake. That's quite the origin story. It prefers to be in the water, while in that habitat, only its head and occasional parts of its long body are visible. In Maine, there's only one species of water snake, the northern water snake, at around 4 feet long, and it certainly doesn't fit the size of the sightings of the Pocomoonshine Lake Monster. Unfortunately, no official record exists of a monster being pulled from the waters and measured. Thus, we have to depend on estimates of lengths, and those vary, obviously, from 30 to 60 feet.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And this is such a small little lake that is a massive size for a small lake.
Right, well, hold on. How big did it say the lake was?
The lake is 4 square miles.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Not large.
No, that's not that big to have. Yeah, you're right. That's a huge monster.
A massive size for just a tiny little lake. And a lot of people think of a lake, they think of a giant oval. This is it gets very narrow at parts and then widens out into kind of.
Oh yeah, no. People in Maine don't think of them as giant ovals.
I guess so.
They're really all over the place.
I guess maybe that's just the New York in me, I guess. But it is a very small lake, really, when you look at it. And as if that wasn't terrifying enough, this monster isn't confined to the water. The Pocomoonshine Lake Monster has been reported to be able to leave the lake and drag its gigantic body across land to nearby lakes. A sawmill owner claimed to have seen the Pocomoonshine Lake Monster's trail in 1882, and the man said the monster's track was 4 feet wide and 3 feet deep.
What year was that? I'm sorry.
That was in 1882. It was the first sighting of the tracks. Even during the time period of its sightings, a skeptic was already crushing dreams. Brewer businessman Manly Hardy said that the sightings could simply have been otters. Quote, often 4 to 5 are seen in company. When swimming, one is usually in the lead and others follow in its wake with short intervals between each. And when their backs roll out of the water as they swim, 3 of 4 will often look like one body 30 or 40 feet in length. The seeing of several swimming in this manner has undoubtedly given rise to the stories, often repeated in our newspapers, of large freshwater water snakes, serpents, or monsters being seen in our lakes. So, people are obviously trying to debunk this, but I don't know about you, Amelia, I'm all in on this one. I think this massive snake water lake monster is completely out there in this 4 square mile lake. So if after all that you're doubting the existence of a massive 30 to 60 foot lake monster that looks like a snake and can travel to other adjacent lakes over land, leaving huge trench-like tracks that are 4 foot wide and 3 feet deep, you've got to be losing your marbles.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I don't see how you could possibly doubt the existence of this humongous snake in this 4 square mile lake that has an average depth of 14 feet.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I am all in on this. I 100% believe it.
14 feet. Yeah, I mean, my goodness. Yeah, that sounds like a bit of a tall tale, but I like to believe it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right? When I used to go up to Maine, we had a snake that used to come to the little cabin we were on, and it was only 4 feet, and it
was 30 to 60.
It wasn't 30 to 60. It was 4, and it was a 13-mile lake. And
was it 4 foot wide and 3 feet deep?
No, it was just 4 feet long, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I thought it was like the biggest, scariest thing in the world. And my mom named it Charlie, and it used to swim over to us every year. So there you go.
Oh, lake monster confirmed.
Yeah, right. All right, so. That was a really great story, by the way. Well, I liked that one a lot.
Hey, I only search facts over
here. So the next legend I have is the Sabuttus Well. If you're listening and you're from Maine and I am butchering all your town names, I am so sorry. I really apologize.
Yeah, that's why I chose the Pocomoonshine, because it's literally spelled Pocomoonshine.
Yeah. Okay, so the Sabuttus Well. Sabuttus is a town in Androscoggin County, Maine. The population was 4,876 in the 2010 census. Sentences. The town was formerly known as Webster and changed its name to Sabuttus in 1971 in honor of a former Ansagunti Cook Indian chief. Also, because it was just more fun to say. Okay. What makes the legend of the well interesting is the fact that it happened fairly recently. Some online accounts state that it happened in the late 1990s, and others say it specifically happened in the year 2001.
Ooh.
I know. That's where you don't think the legend being in the 2000s.
I like this.
Yeah.
This is a millennial.
It is, yeah. The story goes, a group of middle school boys dared a friend of theirs to allow himself to be lowered into the old well behind a cemetery in the town of Sabuttus. The boy agreed to the dare.
I'm sorry, Amelia. Are you writing a horror movie?
I'm trying to.
Because that is the perfect opening for a horror movie.
You know, I mean, Stephen King, he's from Maine. He's right from this area.
There you go. They must have been digging deep in their Maine roots.
It's true. That
was not a pun, by the way. That was unintended.
The other boys lowered their friend into the well on a tire attached to a rope and kept letting him go further and further down until they couldn't see him anymore. Suddenly, the rope stopped moving. Fearful that he had maybe fallen off the tire, the boys pulled it back up and their friend was still on it. But it was not the same friend who went into the well. His hair had turned white and he appeared much older than when he went down, and he could no longer speak in coherent sentences. Legend has it that he is still babbling nonsense at the county mental institution today, where he has lived ever since that fateful well incident. No one seems to know exactly who this boy is or even what cemetery it happened in. But one thing is for sure, everyone in that area seems to know about it. I went on to a few different websites that were trying to figure out who this person was, and apparently there are 10 cemeteries in Sabuttus. So if you're in that area, go out and look. I contacted Paranormal 5, which is a group run by Missy Lathrop in Maine. They didn't seem to know too much about it. They said they're from a different part of the state. And I contacted a girl I went to college with who also isn't in that area. So she didn't know either, but I have both of them looking into it for me. So hopefully we can get some answers soon and figure out this legend.
And actually, this goes back to the Unbelievable podcast, the podcast before the Unbelievers podcast. And this kind of reminds me of the topic Mel's Hole, which is a whole different story. I won't go too far into it, but dropping something into a hole and having it come back up completely different. In this case being the boy, now older. That's,
older and with white hair. And in some sites I saw, they said he had black eyes.
Okay, that's a problem.
Yeah.
We need to find this well and fill it up.
Right. That's problematic. Next on our list is one of the most famous ghosts of the great state of Maine, and that is Catherine the Ghost.
Catherine the Ghost.
Catherine the Ghost. So, Catherine Mountain is a 962-foot high hill located in the Black Woods district of Hancock County, Maine. Catherine's Hill is locally referred to as the section of the Black Woods Road, Route 182, which summits near the mountain, the rise ending a short distance from Fox Pond. Both are named after a legendary woman named Catherine, whose ghost is said to haunt the hill. Catherine is considered to be one of the most well-known ghosts in the vacation state, although she is surely not the most well-liked. There are a few versions of the story. The first is, Catherine was traveling on the road with her husband or boyfriend. After their wedding and/or prom night in Bar Harbor, the two were involved in some kind of accident. It is believed that it was not a car accident because the Catherine Hill moniker predates the widespread use of cars in the area, at least back into the 1930s. It is said that Catherine lost her head in the accident and her significant other was never found, and that Catherine wanders Catherine's Hill in the Blackwoods area searching for both her head and her missing love. Now, I know this comes out next week, but we're the day before Valentine's Day right now, and that is really bumming me out. You know what I mean? You spend all eternity looking for the person you love.
And headless.
And headless? That's so sad.
That is pretty heartbreaking. I don't know why people, I mean, you said that she's not well liked. Maybe we didn't get to that part of the story.
We're not on that part yet.
Oh, well, so far I'm on Team Catherine.
Yeah. Poor Catherine. Catherine is said to be dressed in light blue evening or ball gown when she is approaching the travelers asking for a ride, often to Bar Harbor. Travelers who decline the ghost's request suffer various consequences, including but not limited to losing control of their vehicle shortly thereafter, or suffering some unexplained modality or bad luck in the days or weeks after. If she's seen by a motorist on the road, she sometimes has her head and sometimes she does not. The traveler must stop to help her, lest they risk her curse. One story even has a motorist not stopping for the ghost, looking in his rearview mirror, seeing her headless body in the back seat before immediately crashing his car.
Oh, that's the worst.
I know, I hate it when that happens.
That is one of when that happens.
Okay, so in Down East folklore, there are other reputed stories dating back as far as the colonial period. Some allege that Catherine was a witch, executed nearby, or a local girl lost to supernatural forces in the region. Historically, the area has long been considered part of one of the most rural territories of the state, as it is a distance from the historic routes along the coast and surrounded by the Shudik foothills, thick forests, as well as bogs, fens, marshes, and creeks. The book Dark Woods, Chill Waters, Ghost Tales from Down East, Maine, by Marcus Lisbizzi, a professor at the University of Maine at Machias, contains several variations on the legend. It also includes testimony suggesting the Catherine legend may have been based off an entirely uneventful evening in the life of one Catherine Downing, who died December 29th, 1862. While Lisbrizzi hasn't seen the ghost for himself, he's heard and experienced the strange phenomena associated with Route 182. There are a lot of electromagnetic anomalies documented. You'll be driving along and the car will completely stall out and everything just shuts off, Lisbrizzi said. It's like you go through a force field. It happened to me. I had kids and animals in the car. Even just last year, there was a fatal accident on 182. A lot of bad things have just happened here. So, what do you think about that? Actually, I'm going to go to me first. I want to say what I think about that. One of the things I find very interesting is that that area of Maine also has a lot of UFO sightings. And as many people listening probably know, when you're driving alone and all of a sudden your car just like stalls out and you feel like you're going through a force field, maybe you lose some time, that's usually from a alien encounter.
Yeah, that's a good point. You brought up that the area has unusual electromagnetic activity. I mean, I'm not super well versed, maybe not as much as I should be in aliens, but I know that high or unusual EMF activity is a giveaway for alien activity as well as ghosts.
Yeah, for sure.
So if it's in like road in the woods in Maine, there shouldn't be any like major power lines nearby or really any other explanation for EMF.
It's true. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I didn't actually even take that into consideration. I mean, this is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And for the record, I am still on Team Catherine. Just give the girl a ride. That's it. Look at her head. She needs some help.
Right. You're right. So as I was researching this story, I found something written by a Waldo County police officer online. And now it's online, so you take it with a grain of salt, but it's also a ghost hunting podcast, so you gotta take that with a grain of salt too. And this I thought was very, very interesting. So I'm gonna read it to you now.
I love stories from police officers. They're just a little more credible to me.
Yeah, they are, and especially the ghost ones. Because they're kind of like no BS people, you know?
Right.
Okay. There's an old wise tale about the stretch of road in Maine, Route 182, aka Black Woods Road, home to Catherine, the ghost hitchhiker, and the devil truck. Please excuse my writing, for I am still shaken to my core by my experience that happened 5 years ago. The story of Catherine I'm not going to comment on, since there are stuff loads of accounts and even shows that made episodes about it. What I'm going to talk about is much more darker. The devil truck. This truck isn't talked about much except by the old timers at the gas station called Tideway. When they first told me about it, I didn't believe it. Boy, I wish I would have before I left the store that night, but anyways. I thought, great old timers telling me some BS since I just got moved here. I should add that at this time I was a fresh deputy with Waldo County. So I grabbed an orange juice out of the cooler because they didn't have the Gatorade I liked. Told the old timers I'm going to head home because I have a long day shift, paid for my drink, and left. Here's the creepy part. I live on 182, so I started driving home normally in my take car. What's a take car?
I was just going to ask the same question.
We have a lot of police officers who listen to the show, so maybe they can tell me what that is.
Maybe it's police lingo.
Right,
police
yeah.
jargon.
That's what I'm wondering. Take home.
Take like T-A-K-E?
Yeah.
You probably sound so stupid to those police officers.
Yeah. I'm sure we do. I usually do, so it's okay. Okay. So I pulled out of the gas station and sped off. I set the cruise control in the Charger to 50 miles per hour and just started thinking about what I wanted for supper. About 3 miles after the gas station, a truck pulls out behind me. I didn't think much of it, except it was weird to see a 72 F-100 out on the roads this late. Then, out of nowhere, about 25 minutes after pulling out behind me, the truck rams the back of the cruiser, sending me sideways. I remember slamming into a tree and spinning back across the road and the guardrail that separates the road from Fox Pond. I instantly put on my blues so traffic would see me since my headlights were facing right where the blind spot was on the road. I got out looking for the truck, thinking it has to be a problem with the truck. Surely someone wouldn't try to kill a sheriff's deputy up in Maine. But there was no truck. There wasn't even a sign of a truck. I tried calling it in, but my car radio wouldn't work. Luckily, one of the old-timers from the store was traveling home as well and stopped to help. What he said to me haunts me every time I drive that road at night. Must have been going fast. Devil truck doesn't like speeders. After he said that, I went to look at the tree I hit and saw a speed limit sign someone must have ripped out that was laying about where the point of impact was on the tree that hit me. Speed limit, 45. What do you think of that story?
Well, this sounds a lot like a vigilante, not police, but vigilante devil truck. Maybe you shouldn't be speeding down these roads.
That's true, but my goodness, slamming someone into a tree over it, that's a little excessive.
Hey, you gotta take the law seriously.
Apparently no one's above the law in your eyes.
No one. You go 46, you're going right off the cliff.
Okay, so I think that wraps up what we got for tonight for Legends in Maine. Legends in Maine.
A lot more than I expected we were going to find. And there was still tons of
so much more. I will say that the people up in Maine, my maniacs, they most often are the ones who send me notes like, hey, you should have included this, should have included that. And I am saying full well right now, we know there are many, many, many other legends in Maine. And hopefully we are going to get to many, many more later this year. But for those ones, I'm actually hoping to go up to Maine and do a little research. So that's all we're going to touch on today.
All right. I also want to know, leave a comment in the latest post on the page, but I want to know if you actually like being called maniacs.
Yeah. Do you like that?
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Oh, well, that's because you're not from New England.
I guess so.
Well, you know what I will say? I would say maniacs probably don't like being called that by a New Yorker.
I'm not the one that said it. Clear.
Okay, so now we are going to do a callback to our episode we did with Mike from Arizona on haunted phone calls and haunted phenomena. So now we're actually going to call Drea Mora from the Unbelivers Podcast. And I was actually on their podcast last week on a episode on paranormal in California. So you can go listen to them after you listen to us. So Drea has some really interesting stuff to tell about a spooky experience she had, so let's give her a call. Hi, Drea. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. And I'm so excited to hear about your, text message you got?
Yeah, it was a text message notification thing that was bizarre to me. I couldn't really make full sense of it. So basically, brief backstory, my oldest brother was killed back in 2013. So, naturally my mom goes to visit, his grave periodically. And she'll send me pictures when she's there. She sends me pictures just whenever, we talk a lot. And so, I think it was near his birthday that she sent over a couple of pictures, about 3 of them actually. And what happens when I get a text message notification that's a picture, it'll just have the sender's name and then the file name itself. So, I got those and I was neat and everything. Picture notification was ours. So 3 pictures initially. One was of her and my stepdad, cheersing at a toasting stand. And then one was head-on shot of just the headstone. And then there was another one of just flower, the arrangement or something. And so when I get this next one, which is another picture, because like I said, cheap, but instead it was actually, I look at the file name and I compared it, and it was the photo of my brother's headstone again, but she hadn't sent it again. And I thought that was bizarre that it popped up, especially because it was the last photo she had sent, but it wasn't. It was the middle one, the second one. It kind of kept popping up, just for a while it was every single day. Sometimes then it was multiple times per day.
Oh, wow.
And it always was the same picture. The same photo of the headstone. And I couldn't figure out why, because my phone had never done that before. It was definitely, and it wasn't doing it with anything else either. She had sent me pictures of other stuff since. This went on for months and months until my phone eventually finally died of radiation.
Wow, and it was only that photo.
Yeah, only that photo notification. I didn't know if it was he was trying to tell me, hey, come visit me. You didn't visit me on my birthday, so what the hell, or something. But, it was very insistent, very persistent. And sometimes it would go a few days without, but, it would make me smile every time that I did get that notification.
Yeah, that's really sweet. And I'm so sorry for your family's loss, but that definitely seems to me like a message from him that he's just watching out for you.
Yeah, I would like to think so, because like people say, there should be a logical explanation for most things, but why it wouldn't happen with any other people sending me photos, why it wouldn't happen with any other photos that she would send me henceforth after that, I just can't explain that.
Yeah, that's wild.
My first thought where it was, there's always a logical explanation for most things, but, because my phone does the same thing. If I send somebody a picture, because I have an Android, and I send an iPhone picture, they might get it twice, and they might not get it all. But if it's a photo over multiple weeks, months, that's something.
Yeah, I tried resetting the phone and everything. I'm turning it on again. It's not a factory reset. But yeah, it's just weird. It's kind of sad now that I have a different phone because now I don't get that notification anymore.
That's crazy, though.
But yeah, so that's why I was I'm not sure if it's paranormal, but it just is too odd of a coincidence, and it just held too much significance for me to brush it off.
For sure. No, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys ever have another theme or stories that I can relate to, then I'll be sure to call in again with some of those too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for letting me tell my story to you guys.
Of course. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
All right, bye. Wow, that was a great story from Drea. That was amazing. And of course, you guys can always go check out her podcast that she does with Russ and Rob. And that's the Unbelivers Podcast. You can find links to them on all of our stuff. And then, Will, you called me earlier this week because you had a strange story too.
Yes, I did. I actually called you, what was this, Friday night, maybe? Saturday?
Yeah, I think it was Friday night, yeah.
Yeah, so I was, I'm a very boring person, so I was sitting at home on my couch. And, I called you. You sounded like you were busy, but that's because you have a life. But this couldn't wait.
So yeah, it was really interesting, but I've already heard you tell me this story, so why don't we get it from Julia this time? So everyone, please welcome to the show, Julia, who is Will's fiancée.
Hello, Amelia.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am great. So I'm excited to hear your version of this story.
All right. So, like Will had said, my uncle passed away recently. He and his best friend, going back years, they had this word. It's just a word. I don't know if it evolved from something else, but it was this dumb word that they would yell back and forth to each other. So his best friend had been diagnosed with cancer. This is obviously prior to his passing. You know, he would go up and visit him. Well, his wife and his, I guess, other best friend were on the phone. So my uncle's wife and his best friend were on the phone, and they're talking. Neither of the two guys are around, just the two women on the phone, and they hear this word over the phone. So the one woman stops and she says, "Oh, is Bob there? Is Bob in the background?" My aunt goes, "No, nobody's there." And she's like, "You know, I just heard that word. I heard his voice clear as day. I heard the word." And nobody was there. Neither of them were there to say the word.
Wow.
Yeah, very strange. You know, knowing that Will and I are in the paranormal field, my aunt brought this story up to me, and I explained, spirit has the ability to interfere with electric devices and use of electronics. So, yeah, I really didn't have an answer for her or a debunking explanation for her. Pretty wild if you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. It was both of their first experiences with any sort of spiritual, paranormal type, I don't want to say paranormal activity, but paranormal experience. So it freaked them out a little bit.
I believe it, but they also must have felt some kind of sense of comfort.
Yeah, definitely. You know, just knowing that they were there.
Well, that's great. And thank you so much for sharing that with all of us.
Of course.
And have a very happy Valentine's Day and keep making Will happy.
I'll try.
Yeah, so that was Julia's, family's part of the story. Then I had a personal experience with this also. So because of the passing, Julia was down on Long Island and I stayed up in Buffalo. I had to work. So Julia was calling me on the phone, telling me the same story that you guys just heard. And, she told me about that, and then she, went on to talk about the funeral, how some of her cousins were making speeches, and she had mentioned her cousin Christine, and how she was making a nice speech at the funeral and all that. And she had just moved on to talk about some more cousins when, over the phone, while I'm talking to Julia, I hear a man's voice say, "Christine." Very clear. Now, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with her uncle, the one that had passed, so I'm not sure that it was his voice, but it was for certain a man's voice. And when I heard it, Julia didn't break stride. She was still talking about, everything. And I had to stop her. I said, wait. I said, "Is there anyone with you?" And she said, "No." I said, "You didn't hear that voice?" And she said, "No." She said, "What'd you hear?" And I told her. And it didn't come through on her end, but for some reason I heard it on my end of the phone. And it was clear as day. I'm alone in my house. Unless my dog learned how to talk, then it didn't come from my house. So it was just odd that the week after that we had recorded that episode, everyone listening to this episode now can go back and listen to the beginning of that one, where I say I have never had any kind of experiences like that to talk about. And here I am a week later.
Now we got one.
Now I've got one.
That's great. Yeah, that's really spooky.
Yeah, that was interesting. It was almost too good to be true for that to happen with that.
It's like a sign on a sign.
I guess it is.
It is. Ooh, I like it. Well, that's great. Thank you. So yeah, thank you, Drea. Thank you, Julia. And thank you, Will.
Of course.
All right. I think that just about wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much, Will. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
As always, you can find me personally on Instagram at Will_Fox_paranormal. You can reach Long Island Paranormal Investigators at their website, liparanormalinvestigators.com. You can reach Lippy on their Instagram, Li Paranormal Investigators. You can also search Long Island Paranormal Investigators on Facebook and YouTube. We put YouTube videos out every day, I think, or every other day. And as always, I'm very disappointed. I haven't received any DMs yet, but please DM me at Will_Fox_paranormal if you have haunted dolls you want to get rid of. I will take them. I will house them in my house because I am a freak.
Yeah, go send Will all your spooky dolls all the way up to Buffalo. Okay, and that's all I got for this week. Please be sure to leave our podcast a 5-star review, whether it is on the Apple iTunes Store or it is on Facebook. Or if anyone out there can figure out how to do a 5-star review on Stitcher, let me know, because we have a lot of listeners who use Stitcher, and I want them to be able to review us.
And I listen on Spotify, and I haven't even rated our own podcast.
I don't think you can rate it on Spotify.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, I know. That's ugh. But if you can't, you can go rate us on Facebook. We really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me. And I think that's all I have to say this week. If you don't think we deserve a 5-star review, send me a private message letting me know what I can do to make the show a little bit better for you. You can find me on Instagram at Ghost Hunting in New England, Facebook.com/Ghost Hunting in New England, Twitter, Ghost Hunting NE, or on our website, ghosthuntinginNewEngland.com. There's a contact form right on there. I have not updated the website since we had David Ray on back in December, but that's my goal for this week. You can send a carrier pigeon to Somerville Media Center in beautiful, sunny Somerville, Massachusetts, which is full of slush tonight, but usually it's a very nice place. And yeah, that's it. So thank you guys. Tip your barista. And as always, happy hunting.